We've all been babies at some point, meaning we've all had to navigate the trials and tribulations of toddlerhood with boundless curiosity and a touch of chaos. For my money, no show captures this quirky time better than Rugrats, a show all about babies doing baby things. Before a certain sponge came along, Rugrats was Nickelodeon's titan of the animation industry, with the show spanning a whopping 9 seasons. With that said, we've got no time to lose. Today, we're looking at the entirety of Rugrats from start to finish. Here we go. But before we start, you know the drill. Let's cover some of the basics. Tommy Pickles is the brave and curious leader of the Rugrats gang, always ready to embark on imaginative adventures and support his friends through thick and thin. Chuckie Finster is the timid but loyal best friend of Tommy, known for his nervous disposition and humorous reactions to the baby's escapades. Angelica Pickles is the bossy and manipulative older cousin of Tommy, often trying to assert her authority over the babies, while grappling with her own insecurity. Phil and Lil DeVille, that's a tongue twister, are mischievous fraternal twins who add humor and energy to the group dynamic with their love for gross-out humor and playful rivalry. Spike is the loyal and laid-back family dog of the Pickles, often joining the babies in their adventures and serving as a source of comfort and companionship. Lou Pickles is the wise and caring grandfather of Tommy and Dill, offering sage advice and fond memories of his own adventures to guide the babies through their escapades. Dee Dee Pickles is the nurturing and understanding mother of Tommy and Dill, balancing her career as a teacher with her role as a loving parent, always striving to provide a supportive environment for her children. And finally, Stu Pickles is the inventive and somewhat eccentric father of Tommy and Dill, known for his quirky inventions and creative solutions to parenting challenges, while also being a loving and devoted husband to Dee Dee. In the first episode, Tommy's first birthday, well, it's about Tommy's first birthday, which starts with him being woken up by his mother and father. While his parents were distracted with coordinating his party, Tommy became obsessed with the commercial about dog food playing on the TV.
Husky's choice. He'll run faster and jump higher.
While everyone starts arriving at the house, Tommy's goal of reaching Spike's dog bowl crawls further and further. Get it? Anyway, the twins and Chuckie get placed in the playpen with Tommy, which is where he convinces all of them about the magical powers of dog food, allowing them to turn into dogs. Chuckie's hesitant, but the twins become even more indulged when it comes to having fleas. Waiting for Angelica's arrival, all the babies seem startled by her presence. As the toys start being handed out to Tommy, Angelica starts trying to place dibs on his toys. After being conceived by the magical powers of dog food, the children all become obsessed with Spike's food, being stopped yet again, but this time by his grandparents smothering him in kisses. Yuck. It's present time. The adults fall quickly into fascination with the baby walkie-talkies and head to the backyard to play with them. Meanwhile, Tommy becomes distraught with the constant frustration of not being able to reach Spike's majestic food. Eventually, Tommy tries sneaking away again, only this time seeing Spike has eaten all of his dog food. But don't fret, the babies find more of the food at the very top of the shelf. Chuckie thinks he found a quick solution by using the hoverama, the toy Tommy's dad made, although he ends up causing a disaster as the hovercraft grasps Tommy's overalls, lifting him into the air. Angelica's left hanging onto his feet for dear life. The babies try to fix it, leaving Angelica flying face first into some flour. Tommy grasping onto everything to try to get himself down until the hoverama eventually breaks into the cake, making things even worse. Finally, after all that cakey chaos, the adults are alerted of their shenanigans. Good news though, the kids finally get their hands on the dog food, only to find it to be absolutely disgusting. Tommy's birthday ends on a happy note, with all the babies finding joy in being dogs for the night. Time for our second episode, Barbecue Story. Also, you gotta love the title cards for this show. In this one, the Pickles invite everyone over for 4th of July celebrations in their backyard. The babies, Tommy and Chuckie, are in the playpen, where Tommy expresses his great amount of love for the ball that his grandpa got for him. Of course, as we'll find throughout the entirety of the show, Angelica is absolutely cold-hearted and takes Tommy's ball before tossing it over the fence. Before Tommy has a complete mental breakdown, his mother picks him up just enough for him to glance at his ball. Tommy tries convincing the rest of the kids to go on a mission to get his ball back. However, they try expressing that he's only a baby.
You're only a baby.
But Tommy is determined and courageously states that a baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
Baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
And so, on that mission they go. Tommy breaks out of the playpen with the rest of the children, crawling into the yard, leaving the kids to separate from each other. After unfortunate circumstances, such as Chuckie somehow managing to get his head stuck in a truck, Tommy eventually sees his ball in the other yard. It turns out they were in the wrong yard the whole time. I mean, their brains are still developing, so these things can happen. Chuckie and Tommy climb over the fence without noticing there's a dog in the doghouse. And what's worse, it's a bulldog, a scary bulldog. Lunging toward them, the two boys emerge with fear and grab each other, while luckily the bulldog's chain-linked leash stops him within inches of the boys. Tommy insists on grabbing his ball, and as the dog continues tugging on his leash, it loosens the entire doghouse, giving the bulldog space to run towards Tommy as he's trying to climb the fence. The twins run back to the Pickles' backyard, clearly frightened. That's when the adults notice the babies are out. As the parents search for Tommy and Chuckie, they hear a scream from the yard over. Spike, too, hears the scream and comes to Tommy's rescue, while destroying the backyard as well. But he's still a dog on a mission. He leaps in front of Tommy and somehow scares the bulldog back into his little doghouse. Tommy and Chuckie are forever grateful for their knight in shining collar. But now, all the burgers are burned. While Grandpa Lou is relaxing on the couch with a newspaper in his hand, he stumbles across the words Little Miss Lovely contest. His eyes immediately go to the prizes, and he sees that the winning girl gets a boatload of toys. And for the father, the Kingfisher 9000! He comes up with the amazing idea of enrolling Tommy Pickles in the pageant as Tanya Pickles. Stu, who initially isn't on board with the idea, is easily convinced by the Kingfisher 9000! And so, the two use little Tommy as a Cabbage Patch doll to play dress-up. Not sure she's going to wear it. Grandpa Lou and Stu quickly grab Tommy and place him into the car before anyone sees. Tommy is in line as Tanya looks over and sees Angelica singing.
Sweet land of lizardy.
While looking familiar, Angelica doesn't notice Tommy. However, Tanya receives a nice warm welcome from her.
Having fun, Goldilocks? Just remember what I told you.
Dee Dee arrives with intentions to support Angelica, but quickly notices Tanya. Prior to all of this, Stu and Grandpa Lou quickly tried to take little Miss Tanya out of the contest before she went on stage, as Tommy was too young to be taught how he should be acting on stage as little Miss Tanya. Shockingly, she absolutely wows the judges with how adorable little Miss Tanya is.
That is the sweetest little girl I've ever seen.
Right when the judges announced Tanya Pickles as the Little Miss Lovely, Dee Dee immediately puts two and two together, jumps on stage, undresses Tanya, and turns her into Tommy on stage. It's a little rude. The crowd and judges become horrified by what they saw, and Angelica, who's initially runner-up, is crowned as the new Little Miss Lovely. Dee Dee, upset with both the boys, Grandpa Lou and Stu, refuses to drive Grandpa Lou, leaving him to walk home and watch Drew and Angelica pull the Kingfisher 9000, which is filled with toys. Ruthless Tommy begins with a chaotic search for car keys that, as you may guess, doesn't go as planned. Dee Dee's frantic quest for her keys leads to a sleepy Grandpa Lou being forced to watch Tommy. However, a sleepy Grandpa always finds his way back to his armchair, and Lou eventually dozes back to sleep. Tommy seizes his chance for adventure, stinking out the front door and onto the lawn, but his plans for playtime are interrupted by literal kidnappers. Unfazed by Tommy's tears, the kidnappers attempt to nullify the situation with Tommy's beloved purple ball that we were shown earlier in the season. Little do the kidnappers know that Tommy isn't a normal baby, as they are consistently bamboozled with his pranks and antics. This is giving off some major Home Alone vibes, cutting back at home to the grandpa that is definitely not getting paid enough for this. Lou is trying his best to decipher the kidnappers' note, only to be jump scared by them returning Tommy home unscathed.
Please take him back, please. We learned our lesson and we're very sorry, Mr. Thump.
And the Babysitter Award of the Year goes to not him. Candy Bar Creepshow begins with us getting introduced to just how fun and seasonal the Pickles household gets during the spooky season. The adults of the show are seen busily setting up their makeshift haunted house. Dee Dee frets over the level of frightfulness, while Grandpa Lou, sporting a monstrously hideous mask, spins tall tales of real ghosts and tricks from his childhood. Naturally, nobody takes his story seriously. However, they may regret this later on. Despite being deemed too young for the haunted house, Tommy and the other children conspire together in order to come up with a plan regarding how they'll get their grubby little hands on mounds of candy. Sneaking into the haunted house, they find themselves unimpressed by the spooky decor. Instead, they decide to turn the whole place into a makeshift playground. The babies eventually begin their mission of candy napping. However, Grandpa Lou stumbles upon them, chaos breaks out and the children frantically run away. Back inside, the triumphant toddlers revel in their sweet victory. While outside, Angelica's cries for her beloved Reptar bar echo into the night. Yeah, not gonna lie, we're only a few episodes in, but I can say Angelica fully deserves this kind of treatment. In this next episode, Dee, Stu, Angelica, and Tommy set off at the crack of dawn, bound for the majestic Grand Canyon. But as with any adventure involving this crew, things quickly take a turn for the absurd. As the miles stretch on, Angelica's boredom sets in faster than a speeding ticket on the highway. With markers in hand and mischief in mind, she transforms the map into her personal canvas, much to Dee Dee's unwitting approval. But the real chaos unfolds when a wrong turn leads them straight into the clutches of conniving mechanics, who see dollar signs in the pickle's misfortune. While Dee Dee cleans up pie-induced mishaps and Stu contemplates diner delicacies, Tommy and Angelica find themselves in a garage straight out of a slapstick sitcom. Amidst tires and oil spills, Angelica's schemes reach new heights as she declares the garage to be the mythical Graham Canyon, with poor Tommy as her reluctant donkey substitute.
You could be the donkey, and I'll be the driver.
And just when it seems things couldn't get any crazier, a fortuitous car sends the mechanics running for the hills, convinced they're facing a haunted vehicle. Really? You'd think that I've seen something like this by now if they're mechanics. But with a stroke of luck, the Pickles find themselves back on the road, with a new engine and a baffling act of kindness from the very mechanics who tried to swindle them. And if the Grand Canyon seems a bit too grand for their taste, fear not. The Clam Canyon offers clams, water slides, and plenty of fun in its own right, even if it's not quite the Graham Canyon Tommy had in mind. In the first episode of Season 2, Toy Palace, Stu and Chaz, the dads of Chuckie and Tommy, take them to, you guessed it, a toy palace. Stu, being an inventor, absolutely loves the store and the toys, whereas Chaz is concerned about the safety. You know what they say, like son, like father. Meanwhile, Tommy and Chuckie find a way to stay inside the store as they close in the next 5 minutes. The boys place toys that look like them in their strollers as they slip off into the store. All the while, the security guy is too busy eating donuts and watching TV to notice the two boys walking around. Their fathers get back to the house only to notice the two boys are missing, and they hurry their way back. When the two panicked parents try to tell the police officer that their kids are locked in the store,
Kids are in the store.
We were in the store this afternoon, and somehow our kids got locked inside.
he simply claims that the cameras would have sensed them,
There's no way a couple of babies could have gotten by this security network.
which they did, and he would have noticed if he wasn't too busy sticking his face in a bag of food. Stu and Chaz are eventually reunited with their kids, and the security guard is happy to see them together. You think being trapped in a toy store would be a kid's dream, but no, quite the opposite, since the boys had some, let's say, interesting encounters during their misadventure. Who would have thought? This is a show about babies. You had to have known there'd be an episode about potty training, right? After pulling the toilet paper off the roll into a huge pile on the floor, Tommy is caught by Dee Dee and brought back to the playpen. As Tommy and the babies play in Chuckie's potty, he expresses how they're trying to make him use the potty. Angelica says that the babies know nothing because everybody who's anybody is potty trained.
Oh, anything? Everybody who's anybody is potty trained.
And tells Chuckie he is just afraid to go without diapers.
Little baby scared to be without his diapers.
As soon as Chuckie thinks he doesn't have to go, he gets up and immediately uses the restroom on the floor. Angelica overhears Chuckie explaining how hard it is to potty train, and she decides to mess with him by turning on and off the water faucet. Chuckie starts running across the room in panic, thinking he's gonna pee. Before the water shuts off, Chuckie stops running, then Angelica turns it back on, and the cycle continues for a little while. The sun sets, and Chuckie begins to have a nightmare of his in a prison cell, as if he was on a death row to use the chair. This one isn't electric though, it's literally just a giant restroom. Angelica flushes him down, and Chuckie wakes up rushing to the toilet and using the restroom on the potty. Dee Dee and Stu immediately wake up and praise him as Angelica comes in crying that she wet her PJs.
Dee, I had an accident.
Oh, how the tables have turned. In the episode Angelica is in Love, we are brought into Angelica's perspective for the first time. She's riding home from the Pickles' house when she starts to think of those that got away. At such a young age? Alright. Then Angelica has a flashback to meeting Dean. It begins with her, of course, messing with the babies as usual, but this time Tommy informs her about a really big kid, who's even bigger than her. Angelica immediately falls head over heels for this Dean, though he doesn't give her the time of day. In fact, he's more intrigued with Tommy. Well, not in that way, he's just more curious about Tommy breaking out of daycare. Frustrated, Angelica tries to find a way to make sure Dean knows that she's in love with him. However, none of her tactics seem to work. After all the rejection, she starts to express her love for Dean to Tommy, and the fact that it's bigger than her love for cookies and milk.
Dean, I love him more than milk and cookies.
Tommy helps Angelica out, saying that if she were to be in trouble, then Dean might just start to notice her. They just need a way to get her in a bad situation. Some might say, a pickle? How about a runaway wagon? They tie a wagon to Spike and set him off, with Angelica screeching for attention. But when Spike gets stung by a bee, the screams shift from cries of attention to cries of real fear. And Dean takes notice. Dean sings her the ABCs and reads her a poem.
Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me?
And after tea time, Dean expresses that Angelica makes him feel weird, that he could do something crazy. Tragically though, as they lean in for a kiss, his mother calls.
Dean, where are you?
Heartbroken, Angelica decides never to love again. But a little kiss on the hand by the new neighbor's sons changes her mind yet again. Because at the end of the day, Angelica is just a girl. As Tommy and Chuckie watch a movie that is definitely not appropriate for their age, Stu catches them and mutes it. He opens the door to a boy delivering a telegram.
Telegram for Mr. and Mrs. Stewart Pickle.
And immediately gets excited. He thinks it's a singing telegram. It is not. Though even still, the delivery boy proceeds to sing the telegram after he expresses how he's never had one. The message itself was about Aunt Miriam and her visit this upcoming weekend.
Dear Stu and Dee Dee, stop. I'm coming to visit this weekend, stop. Looking forward to seeing you, stop.
Grandpa Lou, outraged by this not so exciting news, explains how Miriam is the bane of his existence. And the kids, being nosy as always, misinterprets Aunt Miriam to be an ant, a literal ant.
I don't know, Chucky, but it's got something to do with our aunt.
The boys, Chuckie and Tommy, see a giant alien ant movie on TV and hope that Aunt Miriam is nothing like that. As Dee Dee prepares for Miriam's visit, the boys hide as a plant, as Lou tries to leave to stay in a hotel because he absolutely can't stand Miriam. Maybe it's because he's the Tommy to her Angelica. Who knows? Miriam comes in hot, driving at high speed, taking out trash cans and scaring a dog. We are then blessed with the knowledge of what's so bad with Miriam, considering how Friends 2 has been to her. The first thing she says to anybody is comments on their weight.
Is that you? Let me take a look at you. Never did fill out, did you, Stu? Are you feeding him, Dolly?
Whew, that's rude. She scares Tommy and Chuckie and sends them running, as Aunt Miriam and Grandpa Lou reconnect. Miriam claims that they were thick as thieves, but Lou recalls her being the only thief among the two, as she'd always steal all of his toys. Meanwhile, Tommy is insisting this woman is an alien. He thinks checking her bag upstairs will answer the big question. As the night begins, the boys sneak out of bed and into Miriam's room, finding stuff just to prove that she's an alien. They scream, running away in fear.
What's doing here?
She wakes up Grandpa Lou asking for help finding their kids and goes on a long tangent of how she is so amazing with kids and blah blah blah. This sends Lou into a spiral, and he tells her how he feels to the very last bit. As one would think, this comes as a shock to Miriam. She had no idea that this is how Lou felt about her. They continue to look for the kids, and behind every counter and under every table, Aunt Miriam expresses how she used to be jealous of Lou because of his popularity with the kids. The two have a long talk and reconcile with each other. It gets to the point that even the kids feel safe around her, and she finally gets to see them. The next morning, Aunt Miriam leaves in the same fashion she came in, but this time, everyone dreads her leaving. The Santa experience begins with Tommy, Chuckie, and Angelica enduring the mall in order to meet Santa Claus. Chuckie's convinced Santa is a villain, while Tommy believes that Santa is the embodiment of goodness. Angelica decides to storm up to Santa with her never-ending wish list,
Teenage Nuclear Fusion Squad video game.
Whoa.
A Rocco Mr. X exploding smash-up doll.
only to be labeled greedy by the Santa actor for her audacity. Angelica and Santa end up getting into a heated argument, which, as you can only imagine, traumatizes a lot of other children waiting in line to meet Santa. Eventually, Angelica is given some toys as an apology for Santa's rude outburst. However, this hardly helps. With the very notion of Santa hanging on by a thread, the adults scramble to salvage the situation. Meanwhile, Dee Dee is seen securing a getaway cabin for the families for Christmas, and the boys' fathers are trying their best to come up with a plan involving a Santa appearance for the children in order to renew their faith in the Christmas spirit. As night falls, Angelica is plagued by nightmares of waking up to a Christmas morning filled with nothing but coal. A karmic consequence of her misdeeds. Arriving at the cabin just before Christmas, Angelica attempts to atone for her sins any way that she can. From helping Phil and Lil cut down trees, to Tommy and Chuckie setting up elaborate traps to catch Santa. Eventually, their traps actually work, but not on Santa, unfortunately. Just Tommy's dad ensnared in one. Just then, the doorbell rings. And Grandpa Lou opens it to reveal Santa Claus himself, bringing laughter and cheer as he delivers gifts to all, even Angelica. Does she really deserve it though? Drew and Chaz reflect on the absurd success of their plan, only to receive a call from the actor who's supposed to play the Santa that showed up to their house, declaring his inability to make it, leaving them confused as to who the guy who showed up to their place was. Could that have been the real Santa? The world may never know. An important character is introduced in this spectacle. Meet the Carmichaels. It begins with a new family moving in across the street, and Tommy's family deciding to go pay her a visit. Once there, Tommy's introduced to the kids, along with Susie, that aforementioned character.
Hi, my name's Susie. What's yours? Tommy.
The two then go on their own little adventure as she shows them around the house. However, panic hits when she can't seem to find her room. Distraught, Tommy tries to suggest different ways in which to make her room appear, such as falling asleep somewhere, as when kids fall asleep, they almost always end up back in their room. However, this proves to be faulty. He also suggests leaving a toy out and watching to see where the parents move the toy, as they will most likely move it back to Susie's room. However, this doesn't work either. Susie then convinces herself that her room must just be back in the moving truck, to which the two go outside, but they find nothing. They end up going into a dresser, eventually finding themselves lifted up by the movers. Once dropped back off, they open up the doors and find themselves in Susie's room. And yes, thus a new reoccurring character is born. Later episode, the babies learn to swim. It begins when Dee Dee and Betty, the dynamic mommy duo, stumble upon a notice for swimming lessons during their post-aerobic stroll. The babies are brought to the pool, however, they've never been in such a situation before, leaving them to come up with wild assumptions to make sense of their surroundings. Lil thinks they've stumbled into a kitchen because of the funny smell, while Chuckie insists that it's a bathroom. Eventually, the swimming lessons begin and the babies are introduced to the friendly water. Spoiler alert, it's anything but friendly when you're being dunked against your will.
And good, and two, and 3.
The babies eventually embark on a quest to find the mythical flusher in the giant potty, aka the main pool, led by none other than Tommy himself. However, the babies aren't necessarily allowed in the main pool, and Stu is forced to face his high dive fears in order to save them. With one swift motion, Stu is seen swooping in to rescue Tommy just in the nick of time, earning himself applause and newfound respect. As the chaos subsides, the gang regroups, with Stu suggesting a sauna session to unwind and heal from such a traumatic experience. You know, you come to the show wanting to see the babies, and you leave just wanting to see more Stu. You gotta love him. Season 3 sets off with a banger, Tricycle Thief. It all kicks off innocently enough, with Susie gleefully selecting the tricycle of her dreams, complete with bells, whistles, and even a pinwheel. But things begin to get heated when Angelica decides to rain on Susie's parade with her trademark snark. Angelica swoops in, snatching Susie's prized possession and running away.
Hey, give me back my toy!
However, she crashes and hurts herself, leaving her frustrated and upset. The next day, Susie finds her trike missing. She assumes Angelica stole it and isn't going down without a fight, bringing in her reinforcements, Tommy, Chuckie, Phil, and Lil. Susie's convinced that Angelica is the culprit, but Tommy's not so sure. After all, he has had more experience with Angelica's antics in the past, and she has been known to spin a tall tale or two in her day. Turns out, Angelica's red-handed for a very different reason. She had just been finger painting all day.
Now look! It's finger paint! I was finger painting!
The babies apologize for their false accusation and learn valuable lessons about jumping to conclusions. But hey, if Angelica didn't want to get accused, then maybe she shouldn't be so awful all of the time. In this episode, Grandpa moves out. It begins with Dee Dee whipping up deviled eggs, Stu attempting chicken cutlet, and Tommy munching on a carrot. Good job, Tommy. An argument occurs after a misunderstanding involving Grandpa Sue's new fishing rod. During the chaos, poor Tommy loses his precious carrot. A a tragedy of epic proportions. But the real tragedy starts when Lou mistakenly believes he's unwelcome, packing his bags for Flushing Water's retirement center. Tommy and the family are left bewildered and missing their beloved grandpa, as Lou's retirement dreams turn into a soggy nightmare at Flushing Waters. Meanwhile, Dee Dee, Stu, and Drew frantically try to convince Lou to come back home. In the end, Lou realizes that home is where the heart is. As the Rugrats bid farewell to Flushing Waters and welcome Lou back with open arms, we're reminded that family, no matter how chaotic, is what truly matters. This next episode is titled Angelica Breaks a Leg, which is a fitting title for a bunch of reasons, as you will soon find out. So, Angelica's parents are out of town, and they leave her with the Pickles family to babysit. After a while of staying there, Angelica feels neglected, as she isn't the center of the world.
Aunt Dee Dee, Uncle Stu won't take me to the zoo. Will you take me? No, I can't today, sweet.
And so drums up an idea to injure herself after seeing how much attention a broken leg gets on TV. So Angelica fakes breaking her leg and plays the part of a pitiful injured kid to perfection, getting everything she could ever want in the meantime. The most egregious of all her demands, though, is when she gets Stu to make her chocolate pudding in the middle of the night, giving us this infamous clip.
Here's your pudding, Angelica.
Oh, that's okay, Uncle Stu. I'm not hungry anymore.
Eventually, though, Angelica is found out thanks to a hospital checkup. And what's worse, her parents return home from their trip early thanks to her mother suffering from, you guessed it, a broken leg. Now she's gonna get a taste of her own medicine. But hey, Angelica may not have a broken leg, but she sure did break a leg, you know? It's like what actors say, because Angelica was acting. The Last Babysitter begins with the babies taking on a wild adventure while hunting for monsters in the Carmichael house. It all begins when Tommy and Susie's parents leave them with Susie's older sister, Alyssa, who is tasked with keeping an eye on them. Alyssa decides to entertain the kids with a story from a dusty old book about a monster named Glorgle, who lives in darkness, hiding away because of his unfortunate zits. As Alyssa continues her dramatic reading, her brother Buster and his friend plot a prank to catch her off guard. Susie starts feeling a bit jittery after the spooky story, and the phone begins to ring. When she picks up, she's met with eerie silence on the other end.
Mo? Mom? Hello? Hello?
This mysterious call happens a few more times, leading Tommy and Susie to conclude that a monster might be behind those phone shenanigans. Just then, a blackout descends upon the house, leaving the kids more anxious than ever. Alyssa tries to keep them calm, but soon enough, they hear strange noises coming from the basement. Buster decides to investigate and returns with a look of pure terror on his face. What could be lurking down there? The squad springs into action, strategically blocking the basement door and putting on their detective hats to uncover the mysterious intruder. Armed with their trusty monster book, they set out to identify the creature, but realize they need more intel on how this beast operates. While they're on the monster hunt, things get even more bizarre when they encounter a strange sight upstairs. Tommy spots the monster's hair
It looks like the monster's hair.
and immediately knows that something is off. The kids regroup, summoning all their courage, and soon discover the real culprit, none other than their sticky-fingered neighbor, Sticky. Blizzard. Begins with the Rugrats embarking on an epic adventure triggered by the mere mention of a blizzard. As they navigate the snow-covered landscape, their imaginations run wild. Stu's misplaced excitement over a snow day only adds to the madness, as he drags the kids out for some snow-based fun, leaving Grandpa Lou to entertain the little ones. But the real story begins when Chuckie decides to fix his beloved fire engine by trekking to the North Pole to meet Santa Claus himself. As the babies journey onward, fueled by determination and the promise of toy repairs, they stumble upon what they believe to be the South Pole and face off against the fearsome, abominable snowman. Little do they know, it's just Grandpa Lou's failed attempt at a snow sculpture.
Hey, kids, you having fun?
In the end, while Angelica remains disappointed by the lack of gifts from Santa,
No toys. Not one single measly toy.
the Rugrats revel in their newfound victory, a fixed fire engine and a fantastical journey to the ends of the earth, or at least the backyard. Chuckie's Wonderful Life begins with Chuckie finding himself guilt-ridden. What's new? It all starts with a series of stealing, and a very angry Chuckie decides to banish his annoying friends with a dramatic decree: never speak to me again.
That's the last time I ever listen to you guys.
But as Chuckie wallows in his self-inflicted isolation, a celestial intervention takes place and shows him just how life would be without his friends. Paralleling Mr. Scrooge in The Nightmare Before Christmas, Chuckie learns a lot of life lessons, some consisting of facing fears alone and knowing he should stand by his friends who need him the most. He eventually is granted his return back to the real world. He apologizes to his friends, and he learns of a newfound appreciation for them. The episode ends with him saying goodbye to a celestial being that showed him what it means to be a better friend. Next up is In the Dream Time, which I just want to show one clip. For some reason, this was utter nightmare fuel for me as a kid. Woof.
I didn't know you were coming over.
I'm not Stu.
Season 4 launches with a biblical-themed adventure. Beginning with Minka captivating the babies with her rendition of the first Hanukkah tale. But before she can get to the juicy bits, Dee Dee interrupts with a late emergency in the kitchen, much to the dismay of the little ones who were eagerly awaiting the drama. Meanwhile, Boris, the sleepy patriarch, awakens at the mere mention of latkes.
Dee Dee with the latkes.
Latkes!
Launching into a comedic monologue about his undying love for the Hanukkah delicacy. Little does he know, his culinary enthusiasm is about to spark a feud with his old rival Shlomo.
They took my picture for this. I give out! They use Shlomo's picture instead of mine!
Back in the living room, Tommy and the babies are utterly perplexed by the strange Hanukkah rituals unfolding around them. From weird pancake dinners to ominous birthday candles, they're left confused and concocting wild theories about adult behavior. Later in the episode, the babies, determined to save Boris from the clutches of the meanie of Hanukkah, aka Shlomo, amidst the chaos and confusion. Boris and Shlomo's feud takes a heartwarming turn as they come together to recite the blessings and sing in harmony. Much to the delight of Tommy and his pals, the Rugrats learn a valuable lesson about the true meaning of the holiday: family, forgiveness, and the power of a good latke. This later episode, The Car Wash, begins with Chaz returning from, what else? The automated car wash, beaming with pride over his sparkling clean ride. But Stu insists on hand-washing his car, sparking a debate over the merits of old-school versus high-tech cleaning methods. Chuckie naturally is horrified by the very idea of the car wash, convinced that they're utterly terrifying and unacceptable. Despite his warnings, Tommy, eager for adventure, decides he wants in on the car wash action. Much to Angelica's dismay, inevitably, as per usual, Angelica ruins everything, and both cars get dirty again.
My car!
The babies are forced to accompany the adults to the car wash and forced to face the ultimate test of courage, the dreaded car wash. While Tommy and the twins revel in the soapy spectacle, Chuckie's fears reach new heights, much to Angelica's delight. Eventually, Chaz realizes he forgot about the kids and goes to retrieve them. Chaz emerges from the car wash, drenched in wax and regret, after trying his best to get back to the children. Surprisingly, Chuckie emerges from the ordeal unscathed and even declares the car wash to be not so scary after all. And as Stu declares his newfound love for the car wash and vows to become a regular, Angelica can only groan in disbelief at the bubbly mess she helped create. This later episode of Season 4, titled Angelica Knows Best, begins with Angelica finding her way into Dee Dee's favorite jigsaw puzzle. Eventually, the other children find out about Angelica's antics, which just isn't cool to them at all. Angelica begins to accuse others for her actions, and ends up telling so many white lies her nose literally begins to grow.
My nose.
Eventually, the other babies host a truth-telling intervention, in which Angelica finds herself in the hot seat. Because of the stress, she eventually comes clean,
Yes, it was me. I did it. I broke the vase.
causing her nose to inevitably shrink. Because of her honesty, the other babies begin to respect her just a little bit more, mending their horrible relationship, I guess a little bit. The beginning of Season 5 starts off with the word of the day. When Angelica learns she's a finalist to be the new Happy Helper, she's over the moon with excitement, as that's one of her favorite shows. However, she soon discovers that her idol, Miss Carol, is not the nice character she portrays on screen, highly disappointing Angelica. Angelica learns a forbidden phrase that she isn't supposed to say, and then promptly says it right on live TV.
Shig, thanks for all that.
Oh, no!
Absolutely ruining her chance of ever rising in the ranks of Miss Carol's graces.
That's it. Get her out. Get her out of here.
Because of this, Angelica eventually, on accident, I might add, reveals how rude Miss Carol is actually being, causing the show to undergo a dramatic transformation. You see, Miss Carol had said, "You are all little," leaving the audience to fill in the blank.
You are all little.
Angelica is confused by this, as she only wanted to join her on her favorite show, not ruin the person who once was her idol. Worst of all, she's no longer going to be on the TV show. There goes her shot at fame and infinite attention. This later episode in season 5, The Family Tree, begins with us finding out that it's Stu and Dee Dee's 5-year anniversary. As the celebration unfolds, we learn of Angelica's jealousy over Tommy and Chuckie's friendship. Aww, guys. She does have a heart. Chaz inevitably gets roped into a family tree project, revealing that Tommy and Chuckie might potentially be brothers. Chuckie and Tommy celebrate this. However, Chuckie eventually becomes frustrated and jealous with Chaz spending so much time with Tommy. Meanwhile, Angelica schemes to shake things up, because of course she does. Chuckie eventually throws somewhat of a tantrum, and it's revealed as to why he's so upset. Tommy and him reconcile, and the two come to the revelation that while they may potentially not be brothers, it doesn't quite matter, as they're best friends.
Do you still think we're brothers? I don't know, Chuckie, but I know we're bestest friends.
Also, while Dee Dee and Stu are on their cruise ship to celebrate, they find out that Dee Dee's pregnant with another child.
Stu, we're going to have a baby.
We meet the beloved Dill Pickles in this episode, Raising Dill. It begins with his parents realizing that while he has already begun to grow, they've been slacking immensely on the documentation of his toddler's success. Panicked, they begin documenting everything. And I mean everything. Meanwhile, Angelica decides to proclaim herself as a wonderful toddler teacher and begins her attempt at making Dill a smart baby. However, it becomes abundantly clear that while her teaching may not necessarily be entirely evil, it is still questionable enough for the rest of the babies to feel the need to come to Dill's rescue. Movie time, but we'll make this quick. An important character and new baby is introduced for the first time in the 1998 film The Rugrats movie. It begins with Dee Dee's surprise pregnancy during her baby shower, to which she and the rest of the family are rushed to the hospital. Once there, Dill is born and immediately makes Tommy cry by pulling on his nose. Once back at the house, it becomes apparent that Dill will simply not stop crying. And I mean, he will not stop crying. Let me just emphasize, in case you didn't understand, Dill won't stop crying. All of Tommy's friends claim that his house is no longer fun with such a nuisance in their presence, leaving even Angelica to comment on how annoying this baby is. Cold-hearted as always, even to the newest of newborns. Eventually, the babies are so sick of Dill that they put him in a wagon with hopes of returning him to the hospital so that the family can get their money back. Okay, that's funny, but harsh. Eventually, a small argument breaks out as Tommy knows that his parents don't want Dill to be returned. As per usual, Angelica ends up getting involved and inevitably causes problems as she shoves the babies out of the house in their wagon, sending them all the way to the woods. The parents soon find that their kids are missing and promptly call the cops and search all around. Later, they eventually end up in the river, dodging waterfalls and navigating the 7 seas. Eventually, Chuckie, Lil, and Phil stumble upon monkeys that appear to have crashed out of their circus train. Dill, being a baby, smears banana paste on him, causing the monkeys to lick him up and grab him. Lil and Phil purposely let the monkeys take him as they don't want him around anymore. However, Chuckie is absolutely mortified by this. Once Tommy finds out that Dill has been taken,
My brother turned into a monkey?
an argument ensues, causing heightened emotions from the babies, who all claim that Tommy's no longer their friend since he's always caring for Dill so much.
My brother, Chuckie, I have to wish him back.
Tommy takes offense to this, and he and Dill have a heart-to-heart conversation about Dill's actions, and how Tommy will never abandon him because they're brothers. After another strange encounter with the monkeys, the adults eventually see the children, and all are returned to their rightful places. Season 6 doesn't leave us hanging in the old country. Ah, the great outdoors. It all begins when the Pickles family, along with their pals Tommy and Chuckie, embark on a rustic adventure to Boris and Minka's cabin in the woods. As the family prepares to rough it in a cabin straight out of Little House on the Prairie, Tommy and Chuckie's imaginations prove to be just as wild as the raccoons that are eating their baby food out of the garbage. Meanwhile, Chaz ventures into the wilderness in search of his inner caveman. Interestingly enough, armed with nothing but a loincloth and a dream, he's determined to reconnect with his primal roots. Back at the cabin, the lack of modern conveniences has the Pickles, well, in a pickle. With no indoor plumbing in sight, every trip to the outhouse makes them feel like they're one step away from the edge of a cliff, if you're, catching my drift. The episode ends with us knowing that in the future, the Pickles family would probably be better off if they just stayed at home. This later episode of Season 6 challenges Chucky's authority over the other babies and puts his will to the test. It begins with Officer Dan taking charge, teaching kids the rules of the road on their pint-sized go-karts. But when Angelica gets involved, what was supposed to be a fun adventure turns into everybody fearing for their lives, and her racing around like a miniature NASCAR driver, leaving a trail of toppled cones and disgruntled babies in her wake. Because of Angelica's typical antics, Chuckie, the reluctant hero, is thrust into the role of safety officer by Officer Dan himself. Armed with a badge, a whistle, and a heart full of good intentions, and a little bit of anxiety, Chuckie sets out to keep his friends safe from the perils of the playground. Unfortunately for Chuckie, he quickly learns the fine line between caring for your boss and absolutely despising them. His friends inevitably are torn between enjoying Chuckie to being absolutely exasperated by him. Eventually, Chuckie learns to let loose a little, as his friends encourage him to have fun once in a while, and since he needed to let go a little in order to stop Angelica from being, well, Angelica, he slowly but surely starts acting like a toddler again. This later episode of Season 6, Chuckies New Shirt, begins with Dill deciding he actually wants to steal Tommy's prized ball, and also ruin Chuckie's shirt. The other babies don't really know what to make of this, as they've never had to teach before, let alone teach a baby the difference between sharing and stealing. Chuckie becomes anxious as he's forced to wear a shirt he isn't normally used to. Leaving him to feel as though he's not Chuckie anymore. Sad and depressed, he mourns the loss of his shirt, but eventually, Chaz fixes it, hopefully soothing his troubled soul. No Place Like Home is basically a retelling of the iconic Wizard of Oz. This all takes place after Susie gets her tonsils removed and she's highly drugged up. However, her dreamland is called Lots of Tots Land, where lots of tots reside, including Susie's friends reimagined with their sister playing the role of the Good Witch, in this case in a hospital setting. Trouble brews when Angelica, in a puff of blue smoke, accuses Susie of squashing her beloved Cynthia doll.
My dummy.
Susie's sister saves the day with some clever slipper switcheroo, leaving Angelica deflated. The babies embark on a journey to find the magic lizard. Wow, these drugs sure do work. Tommy gets stuck in a petting zoo, and Phil and Lil end up bickering over a worm in a trash can. Angelica eventually tries one more time to thwart the day by pretending to be Dill.
Booby! Don't you dare!
However, this too gets foiled when it's revealed that Dill has just been Angelica's toy doll the entire time, essentially being her puppet in a sense. The episode ends with Susie's bunny slippers and a real-world phone call bringing her back to reality. Susie awakes to the real-world chorus of her friends and family.
Susie, are you there? Susie, the operation's all over. How do you feel, sweetheart?
With even Angelica joining the celebration. Immediately following the Wizard of Oz adventure, we find ourselves wrapped up in a rom-com, only this time it's a dog story. Be My Valentine begins with the babies all dressed up in their little outfits. They're on a mission to help find their dog Spike a Valentine. Angelica, adorned as Cupid, leads the charge, albeit with her usual bossy flair. At first, the babies attempt to matchmake Spike and Angelica's cat Fluffy, which leads to absolute chaos. However, their shared chaotic antics end up bringing Spike and Fluffy closer together, much to the babies' delight. I'm sure they'll be good friends, but maybe not the best couple biologically, you know? Movie time, again. And again, we'll make this quick. This later movie takes our characters on a wild ride all the way to Paris. Rugrats in Paris begins with a heartfelt moment between Chaz and his son Chuckie. They're at a wedding when the mother and child dance comes on and Chuckie doesn't have anyone to dance with. Chaz decides to take this as a sign to get back in the dating ring and find someone which would act as a motherly figure towards Chuckie. Stu is then called by his boss to fly over to France to fix one of his roller coasters. However, Stu doesn't understand the request and brings his entire group of family and friends along with him.
Go get the stuffy legs moving. No time to pick your nose. We got stuff to do. Let's.
Once there, we meet Coco, a character sprung on by her own selfish purposes, and Kira, a wonderful woman who is Coco's assistant. Chaz meets them both, and Coco attempts to win him over as she's told her boss that she loves children, and that she's actually seeing a man right now with a child himself in order to secure herself a promotion. However, Chaz and Kira hit it off right off the bat. Heck, she's a single parent herself, having a daughter, Kimmy, though she tries her hardest to keep her feelings under wraps so that she can help Coco secure him, assuming that her feelings are true and that she loves Chaz. Chaz eventually proposes to Coco much to everyone's surprise. However, before the wedding, she traps all the babies away in hopes that they don't ruin anything. Chuckie and the other babies, absolutely despising Coco, decide to break free and interrupt their wedding.
Chuckie?
After it's revealed that Coco only had selfish, or more so evil intentions, Kira confesses how she feels, and she and Chaz begin to talk. The movie ends with us finding that Kira and Chaz eventually do marry, and Kira arrives in America with Kimmy and their pet Fifi, who just so happens to be dating Spike. Season 7 launches with a hefty 3-part episode that bring many changes to the Rugrats family. First, we begin with the babies being forced to wear new, highly uncomfortable diapers that they're quite reluctant to enjoy or get used to in the slightest. This is followed by Chuckie wagging out when Chaz introduces his new hairstyle, continuing on our train of change, much to the baby's dismay. Finally, all of this is followed by a more drastic change than anyone in the family was ready for or expecting. Lou decides to move out and into a retirement home, deciding that living with the family may just be too chaotic of a lifestyle for him.
Mims, find me an apartment. I'm moving out.
Chuckie reminisces about happier times with Chaz, who seems to be caught in a whirlwind of bizarre dates arranged by Betty. Meanwhile, Phil and Lil revolt against their uncomfortable diapers, opting for diaper-free freedom until Howard intervenes, despite their attempts to cope. Tommy and Chuckie find solace in each other's company, reminiscing about Lou and finding comfort in their friendship. Unfortunately, their peace is short-lived when they find out that Lou has been hospitalized.
What is it this time?
Senior salsa.
Third one this week.
In the aftermath of Lou's accident, the babies concoct a plan to undo the changes brought recently and are spurred by Tommy's belief that their collective wishing power can set things right. Meanwhile, Lou finds an unexpected romance with Lulu, the nurse attending to him. Alright, old geezer, we see you. The episode ends with the babies being satisfied with their wishing abilities, beginning to accept all that has happened and hope to cherish what's going on in their present rather than being worried about their future. Daycare begins with Chuckie coming face to face with his worst nightmare, Daycare. In a world where day scare is misunderstood as the stuff of nightmares, all hope seems lost. It doesn't help that you're close with none other than Angelica, and obviously she's gonna tell you just how horrible Daycare actually is, even though it really isn't that bad. Eventually, Chuckie has to actually go, and he isn't exactly happy about it. However, he soon realizes that Daycare is actually a place full of laughter, friendship, and most importantly, ice cream.
Welcome to the ice cream room, Chuckie.
All glowed up, begins with the babies watching a movie regarding an evil scientist making a time machine. However, they are rudely interrupted when Angelica arrives, singing obnoxiously while crushing all the baby snacks. Dee Dee ends up putting the babies back in their playpen since she thought they were the ones who caused the snack mess. However, they manage to escape and steal the karaoke machine since Angelica won't allow them to play with it when they're out. Angelica chases them around the house trying to retrieve her karaoke. The babies end up getting trapped in a closet and decide to build their own time machine so that Angelica can no longer boss them around. The time machine works, and the babies are transported to 10 years in the future. While there, they learn a couple of different important things, but the main one being a new perspective on their current baby situation. One day, they will be closer with Angelica, and life will open up with many more opportunities. One being arguing with Angelica yet again over a microphone. The pulling of the microphone causes them to teleport back to their normal times, this time actually breaking the karaoke machine microphone and resulting in Angelica becoming infuriated by the babies yet again, attempting to get into trouble and overall not enjoying them at all. The episode ends with Chuckie wondering how long 10 years will feel.
Bobby, is 10 years gonna be a very long time?
Oh yeah, and in case you were wondering, this episode inspired a short-lived spin-off which was also titled All Growed Up. If you want to see us cover it someday, let us know in the comments. Season 8 kicks off with a bang in the first episode titled Preschool Days. It starts with Susie and Angelica getting ready to go to their first day of preschool. Angelica is excited to be able to boss around other classmates as well as her baby cousins. And Susie, armed with a backpack bursting with supplies, is eager to start. As the day unfolds, Angelica's competitive streak clashes with Susie's earnest enthusiasm. From disrupting circle time to sabotaging Susie's projects, Angelica stops at nothing to prove that she's the best student. However, her schemes backfire spectacularly when she accidentally breaks the teacher's cherished coffee mug. Despite their efforts, the mug ends up shattered once more.
Now move on!
Leading to an unwanted but necessary lesson about acceptance from their teacher. The episode ends with Angelica and Susie learning how to value teamwork and accepting others for who they are, even if that means being opposite of each other when it comes to a school setting. This later episode of Season 8, Early Retirement, begins with the babies visiting their grandpa Lou and Lulu, who are seen twirling their way through retirement bliss. Angelica makes it known that she's super excited because of her knowledge of the winner of her sweepstakes being awarded on TV later that day. However, she's tasked with watching the babies during that time, and she should be watching the results. The babies are sad as they miss the retirement home and the fun activities that they could do there, giving Angelica a wonderful idea. She decides to create drooling oaks. She ends up realizing fairly quickly that making the babies do retirement-themed activities is more difficult than she originally would have thought. And during this chaos, she ends up losing her number for the award ceremony. In Dill's diaper, nonetheless. The babies end up getting the full number just after Angelica misses the sweepstakes winner.
What? I missed the sweepstakes?
The episode ends with an ear-piercing scream and an extremely upset Angelica, as even when she wants a little vacation, they still seem to bother her, even when they aren't necessarily trying to. Murmur on the Ornery Express consists of a training adventure and old love. Angelica ends up having a crush on a wealthy boy, and Lulu encounters an old flame named Dwayne. Chaz becomes paranoid after reading about a train robber in the paper and becomes anxious within the first few minutes of being on the train. At first, this doesn't seem like a big deal. However, Wawa, Chuckie's teddy bear, and a bunch of other valuables end up going missing. Not to mention Tommy claiming he saw a shadow figure. Eventually, they think they figure out who the robber is, Angelica, as she might have accidentally grabbed Wawa when the train went into a tunnel rather than her beloved Cynthia doll. They approach her about the situation and she quickly takes back Cynthia, thinking Wawa was Cynthia until then. However, it becomes clear that she isn't the overall robber, just a part of unfortunate circumstances. Eventually, after some digging, they end up figuring out that Dwayne is the thief. He's promptly arrested, and I believe that they all learned a big lesson. Never give your exes a second chance. You never know when they're gonna turn into a train robber. Happens to me all the time. Back to school begins with Dee Dee deciding she wants to go back to school in order to pursue the rest of her education. This puts the Rugrats in kind of a weird spot, as in they didn't know that they could go back and do things most people do earlier in life rather than just continuing as you are now. They get weirded out by this and end up having a kind of sort of midlife crisis at their shockingly young age. They end up embarking on a series of milestones that they're now scared they will somehow miss out on, and go through their entire lives in reverse. Meanwhile, Dee Dee's determination to pursue her education sparks both admiration and concern among the adults, who wrestle with the practical challenges of finding a babysitter and adjusting to a new routine. The babies are worried about the prospect of a babysitter. However, after the crazy day that they've had, they're determined to handle one problem at a time from now on, rather than worrying immensely about their future. Season 9 starts off strong with babies in Toyland. It all begins with Angelica being more happy than usual, as she knows things the babies don't, and it involves a trip to Christmas Land, courtesy of Stu Pickles himself. With dreams of Santa and dancing in her head, Angelica convinces the babies that the real celebration lies in the treasures they'll plunder from the jolly old man himself. Once there, Angelica runs away, determined to find Santa, leaving the babies to navigate the snowy wonderland solo. While the grown-ups are snowed in by their own antics, Grandpa Lou steps up, donning the red suit to save the day as Santa himself. The children have fun imagining different Christmassy encounters, some including oversized nutcrackers to making pals with wandering goats. Angelica ends up imagining an entire musical sequence where she realizes that if she doesn't fix her nasty ways and opinions towards life, then she will never be on the nice list. In the end, the children do receive their presents from their good old Lou. Diapers and Dragons begins with the Rugrats and Taffy, their new babysitter, getting sucked into an arcade game, or so the children think. In order to escape, they must encounter many different challenges and situations commonly found in the real-life game Dungeons & Dragons. While the babies navigate their nightly world, Taffy finds herself embroiled in her own arcade escapades, torn between dominating ping pong catching the eye of a certain token boy. Oh, and by the way, she does get his number. And the children didn't even miss her. They still thought they were inside the night game trying to save her.
Regular-sized Tommy's still coming to save you, Taffy!
Eventually, they accidentally unplug the machine and are forced back into reality, where they confusingly see Taffy right in front of them. They're overall sad that they can no longer play their fun game. However, Taffy tells the babies that they can come back to the arcade tomorrow, which fills them with glee. This later episode of Season 9, Fountain of Youth, begins with a heartfelt stroll down memory lane at Lake Krakeny. Stu and Drew, fueled by a burning desire to relive their glory days, dive headfirst into a debate over who scores the coveted top bunk. However, quickly interrupted, much to the gratification of everyone around them. Meanwhile, Rugrats are off on their own adventure and investigations. Chuckie ends up mistaking a harmless bear rug for a menacing threat, which, that's fair, those things are weird. These guys are still babies, even in Season 9 after all. While the adults dive into a riveting game of Parcheesi, the babies cook up a wild scheme fueled by Angelica's tall tales to uncover the mythical Fountain of Youth. Their quest takes an unexpected turn when they actually stumble upon the real fountain in the lake. The adults magically transform into carefree children once more, or at least their spirits do as they're still in their adult bodies, shocking the children. In the end, the Rugrats learn that youth isn't about appearances, and that you can still be a baby, even if you don't necessarily look like one. The episode ends with the babies playing with the adults and having the absolute time of their lives. And sea monster sighting? Alright, weird episode. Good message. And that is all that we've got for Rugrats. There's some spin-offs and reboots that we can cover in the future as well, so if you're interested, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like it and subscribe so you don't miss another recap. I hope you have a great day, and remember, it's always alright to be a kid at heart. See ya!